Yo, what up, Kay?
Yo, Manny Digital. What's the word?
And unfortunately, EFN couldn't make it today, but you still got us.
Yeah, man. Holding it down.
Yo, so I wanted to get back to what we talked about. I think it was last week. We were talking
Yeah.
about our kids and like how you and I have sons that are kind-hearted.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, they're nice kids. I mean, I don't know your son that well because we haven't spent a ton of time together, but I wouldn't call my son necessarily a pushover. I doubt you would call your son a pushover.
No, no, definitely not. Just I'd put it as like he doesn't he doesn't see things as necessarily a big deal, right? It's
So he'll just
like
take it.
if it's not a big thing, it's not. He's like, why am I gonna make a huge issue out of it if it's not really bothering me that much? Or um, and I'd say adverse to conflict. Like if it doesn't have to go to conflict, he'd rather it not be that way.
Yeah,
But the
trying to keep the
downside,
peace.
yeah, keeping the peace is great. The downside to that is just, and again, they're 10, right? So they're learning how to. Your son's 9, right?
He's gonna be 10 next
Okay,
month. Yeah,
so learning to navigate to know when it's like, okay, this is an example of just let it rise, not a big deal. This, on the other hand, could snowball into other shit if I don't put a stop to it right now.
and they don't have that frame of reference or perspective, right, to know
Right.
which way to go.
Correct. Yep.
So it's interesting you said that because I wasn't really thinking about it like that, but it's in the way I've viewed life and experienced life. Like that's a very valuable thing to have, right? Because people flip out consistently across no matter what's going on, and that leads to a lot more hurt than it does benefit.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
And
If you just look back and think, man, if I'd have just kept my comp on that one, it didn't have to escalate here. So having that frame of reference, or having that historical frame of reference of like, okay, I did, this happened and I didn't do it. And this is what, but they don't, these young kids don't have that.
yeah, so it's funny. So when we last spoke, I was telling you, just I mean, organically, we happened to have that conversation, and we had set up a trial at a jujitsu spot for my son.
Right. Yep.
And I had mentioned how he's not really like an aggressive, touchy feely kind of kid. Like he tries to avoid contact. But we went through that experience, bro. I was shocked, and I sent you guys some
Yeah, I saw the picture.
flicks.
So what? Yeah, walk me through how when you walked in, like how did it go down?
So it wasn't the way you explained it.
Okay,
Nobody was surrounded. Nobody
right.
like trying to sun him. Nah, it was pretty chill. Like I think the advantage my son had was we went with a neighbor of ours who has been going to this place for a while. So he kind of had a delay of the land and the expectations set pretty early from his friend. But as soon as we walked in, everybody was chill. There was no like everybody just fell in line, listened to the instructor and
Mm-hmm.
what the instructor said. I like the fact that they just kind of threw him into it. They didn't like push him to a different
Because
section of the dojo
right, right.
like that.
He's all in at this point.
He's
Yep.
all in. But what they did do, which I thought was cool, was like they broke it down in like levels, right? Without being too having too much rigor around it. It was like, all right, so your son's brand new. We're gonna put him with this person over here who maybe is not as new, but you know the size and weight differential provides like a little bit more balance in the whole scheme of things.
Was your class co-ed, or was it
Yeah,
all boys?
yeah, it's co-ed. Yo,
Co-ed, yeah.
there's some girls that throw down in there.
Yep.
I mean, yo, tough as
Yeah.
nails.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize how aggressive. I keep wanting to say taekwondo, jujitsu is.
Yeah, it is.
Like it's intense, but my son was cool with it, and I never took him for like. I fully expected him to be like, "Nah, yo, this ain't for me." Like early, and he was like excited about it afterwards. He's like, "Yeah, let's do that again." Because he was challenged in a way I think he's never been challenged, and he took to it versus run from it.
Yeah.
So it was a cool experience. The dojo's dope. The trainers seem to know what they're doing, and the I could see, so the amount of discipline that is taught in conjunction with, technical moves. I know martial arts generally is kind of known for that, but seeing it play out in such an aggressive way, to do things was pretty dope.
It's funny you now I'm just remembering like when you talk about like you weren't sure how your son would react to it, but he got all in. So it was kind of my son was the same way, and then we brought a friend of his one time who had siblings and older and younger, and these kids used to fight all the time and be just going crazy. Like, so I'm like, okay, this kid is already tough because his older brother is smacking the shit out of him, and he's fighting and doing all this stuff.
Right.
And but then he got into the class and he was uncomfortable with it. And then one of the kids that he was sparring with just smack talked a little bit. And that sent the kid in tears, and he left the class for the rest of the day. He was like, I'm not doing this
So wait,
again.
so the kid that's been in the class talked a
No,
little.
no, yeah, the kid who'd been in the class was talked a little smack to my son's friend who came for like a first time just to see what it was like.
Right.
And this kid,
Tough guy on the outside.
yeah, tough, but it was funny when it was not his brother's.
Oh, that
It turned into it was like, get me out of here. Where on the flip side, my son, who's not no brothers to wrestle with or any of that kind of stuff, and not really like your son, like a contact person, you know what I mean? But he was okay with it.
Huh. Did you notice, is your son still playing basketball?
Yeah.
Have you noticed that his time in jiu-jitsu, do you realize if it's helped him in his basketball development?
I don't think it has. I think we're still trying to get my son to understand that he's got enough skills to kick someone's ass if he if he wanted to. Like he doesn't have that confidence level in himself yet, or he sees other kids that might be the same size as him or even a little bigger or smaller, and he might think he's intimidated. There's some, for whatever reason, maybe they're just louder or something, and there's some kind of intimidation. But I keep having to remind him, like, I don't know if those kids know what and don't be afraid to throw your weight around. My son is not he's not a frail kid. Yeah. And he's pretty solid. And so I think, like, even with basketball, it's don't be afraid to get in there and box out and push people with your body and that kind of stuff. And I think maybe if he would have continued on in jiu-jitsu, maybe that would sink in a little bit more. I don't know. He might do jiu-jitsu again now that I'm thinking, because when we moved, we left his previous dojo, and then we haven't gotten anything going again since then.
Yeah,
because the stuff that he was studying isn't really prevalent around here. So it's like, all right, if he's going to start over again, then what's going to be more like beneficial for him?
Right. The reason I ask about the basketball thing, because I find for my son in his development in basketball, I find like seeking contact and like you said, like leveraging your body weight in the game is going to be like a big step forward or step up. Realizing that you can do that on the court and not feel like, so for me, as an example, right, growing up playing basketball, I tried to dodge contact, not necessarily because I was afraid of it, more so because I was afraid that the whistle was going to blow and I would get a foul called on me.
Right.
So playing too aggressive felt like a bad thing.
Yep.
But there's an art to it, right? Like you could play aggressive within the bounds of the game and really benefit your performance and your team's, opportunity. And so I'm noticing that with my son, I'm trying to like get him to understand that, because my son is not like a hefty kid or anything. He's pretty skinny, but he's fast, and he's not like super weak either. Like he could bang if he needed to bang. but he's afraid to. And he has the ability to do so and like really create a shot for himself and do all these things. So I'm looking at jujitsu as like an opportunity for him to kind of become numb to contact a little bit and like have it be more part of his like normal routine, so that hopefully that will elevate his opportunity on the basketball court so he can like feel more comfortable, because he's over here tussling with all these kids. Now we're going to sign him up like, because of basketball, he's only going to be able to do jujitsu like once a week. But until basketball slows down, we're going to get him in once a week and have him like.
What's the basketball scenario like in terms of the coaching, and are they there to have fun, or is the serious coaches where they're kind of barking on them and showing them like the real form and all that stuff?
Yeah, I'd say it's less recreational, more about learning the game from a kind of intimate perspective. The barking thing is actually interesting. Like, there's some of it, but that's not the main method of teaching. The coaches that my son plays with, so he plays on 2 teams now. He got travel team and then a CYO team. They're both like really methodical about the game. They study the game, play the game, and people get hot every now and again and scream and stuff, but they know that that's not the best way to get through to the kids. So they work on trying not to let that lead how they teach. But it could be pretty intense. Like, it's very strategic, a lot of real like in-depth, skills and training and that kind of thing. So I like it. I was surprised to find it in these 2 coaches, because I just assumed in my area like it was going to be hard to find quality coaches.
Yeah, because my son had been on these YMCA teams, and he's on something now that's kind of similar in nature, and it's definitely not as serious. Like, the coaching can be all over the place in terms of what they're teaching them, and not necessarily understanding, what even the names of some of the, the shots are, or where to go on some of the, on the court, all that kind of stuff. But then we're taking them also to these a couple times a week to more like a skills coach who coaches with some other, and he doesn't do them too young, but because he barks, like he gets on them, and so, and it's funny. I had been going and taking him, and it's kind of hard to watch sometimes because it's also been good because my son's not necessarily around that with getting loud and putting them on blast and kind of put him trying to answer shit real quick.
Yep.
So it's helping him learn like not to get nervous around that, and be able to like keep your composure and answer the questions and don't get jumbled, and just the coach is teaching him game speed, like do everything game speed, quick pace. You don't have time in a game to mess around, so you got to know this stuff, and he drops a lot of good gems. So I think it's been good for him, even though it can be a little hard to watch sometimes. And I know sometimes my son's like, are we going today? Because he knows he might get it. Right? But he always comes out saying like, that was good, and I'm glad I went. And my wife took him one day, and she hadn't seen it, and so she's texting me like, "Oh my god, should I take him out? The coach is like going off on him right now." I'm like,
I was gonna say moms tend to. So the difference is moms are gonna react and allow their emotion to come out. We're gonna be more conservative as far as like what we're allowing them to see, but inside we're like, "Yo, he might have crossed the line right there." Let me know. Like I could send you some idea. I'll reach out to a couple coaches that I know and see if there's any places that might be a little bit better fit as far as like outside of the Y. If you think your son is interested in doing something more organized. Because it's I mean, I love basketball, so I'm like I guess the wrong person because I'm super fanboy of the game.
Yeah.
But man, like there's so many translatable skills to just real life
Oh yeah, 100%.
that come
I'm
from.
just I'm just waiting for it to kick in at school because the school he goes to is basketball heavy. I mean, they got
Oh.
yeah, they're like known for basketball.
And
And
he's in grammar school
well,
still.
he's going into fifth grade after summer, and that's considered middle school down over
Oh,
here.
okay.
So I think technically sixth grade is when they start allowing, but he could try to petition to get people to do some fifth. But like that's ultimately what I want him. He wants is to be able to do it after school at school because they got a serious program there.
He's gonna oh man, that's exciting. Did you look into CYO basketball at all in your area?
Mm-mm.
Do you even know what that is?
Nope.
All
I
right.
have no idea.
It's okay. It's okay. I know you're not a sports guy, bro. You're
No,
like fucking
I'm doing it
Syph.
vicariously through my son.
You're like Syph. Syph doesn't give a fuck about a sport.
Yeah.
But Catholic Youth Organization, they pretty much in any city you go to, they
Hmm.
usually have some of the best organized basketball, and it's usually associated with some sort of parish.
Oh, okay.
Some of them have rules where you have to go to parish, some don't. I think generally speaking, they don't because the teams are composed of like there's no denomination. It just happens to
Got
be
it.
out of a particular parish.
Is that what your son does?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
During like the school year, for the most part, that's what he does. And then, well, in the spring and summer, it's AAU.
Do they get to trash talk?
Depending on the
or is it
depending on the
or is
level.
it bias?
Nah, they you can hoop, you can
Okay.
hoop. They do try to keep like depending on the age, they try to keep
Right.
it pretty age appropriate, like
Yeah.
fouls and pressing and that kind of thing. They manage, but it's good. Like a lot of people come up playing ball that way and then kind of find their way elsewhere. But
Mm,
it's a good typically it's a good stepping stone to playing at school for the school teams.
interesting. Okay.
Yeah, but I'll send you some stuff. This is
Okay.
my lane. I love this stuff.
Yep. Yep.
Um, final thought, because I know this is a quickie. How are you? Are you? I guess is the question. The answer is likely going to be no. I'm more in the life stage where I'm thinking about this more consistently as my eldest gets closer to college. But are you giving any thought on how you're going to approach getting your son to college?
Hmm. Haven't given a ton of thought about that yet. He does ask about it from time to time. He asks about, well, does everyone go? Do I need to? And so we've had conversations about that there's all kinds of different opportunities depending on what college isn't for everyone, but you can learn a lot from college, not necessarily from the books, depending on what you're trying to study. But maybe there's something that he's super focused and interested in, and there's a school that's more focused in that lane. Maybe that's the better goal for him. Maybe by the time he gets to a certain age, he's on some business shit and he's ready to, he's in that mindset of being an entrepreneur. I'm open to it all. I don't, for me, it's whatever kind of sets him up with the best level of success.
That for him, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So my daughter's committed. She wants to go to school. She wants to go to a school. She says she wants to go to a school that has a strong basketball program.
Okay.
Not so much because she wants to play. I mean, if she had the opportunity, I think she would take it, but more so
Right.
because she wants all the rah-rah that
Right. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So that typically means private institution, higher cost. And so I'm just like, okay, we're
Oh,
gonna
are we talking financial? That was a
I am.
financial question. Okay.
I am. You could
So
have
we do have a 529 for him. I'm slacking on some of the other stuff like the life insurance and all that, but we do have a 529, and for that, for everyone who, because I didn't know what it was, but it's a account that you can deposit money into, or other people can deposit money into, that's held. It's kind of like an IRA or 401k kind of tax free or tax deferred, but it's for school.
Yeah. Well, school and school
Related items. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yep.
we have one too. We set it up mad late. I think my daughter was probably like 8. We set it up. So anyhow, on average, like it sounds like these schools are gonna be north of, if it's a state school, 30K a year.
Student loan and scholarships, baby.
60,
That's where it's
70K,
going.
60, 70K a year if it's, private.
Yeah.
And then that's not even talking about masters if they want to go that route and all that. So what we're talking to my daughter about is like, yo, look, and I try my best not to go into the whole, well, I had to take out all these loans back
Right.
in
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
day, so you're gonna have to do the same thing. Like, I don't want to play that. But I think it's one of, and I've been talking to different fathers that either have kids in college or are on the way to, like, next year their kids are going to college.
Yeah.
And they're like, yo, how do you do it? How do you set it up? How have you been thinking about, affording this for your child? Are you, what are the different strategies you're taking into account? And somebody said something interesting to me, which was like, yo, look, I have like a 529, for my kids, and we're gonna leverage that, but I want them to have some skin in the game. And so I want them to have, some of them is like, have them take the loans out and understand what that feels like, and then also like balance work and school so that they can contribute toward it. Because the faster you can pay, so while you're in school, if you're paying toward it, you're not catching any of the interest, so you can bring the debt down while you're in school, and kind of start to understand how to manage debt, and not make it like a bad thing, just like incorporate into your life.
Right. It's part of something that you're going to have to pay, because you're going to have to pay something no matter what.
Something, even if you go out and get a credit card. I mean, many college students get caught in that trap, right? Like,
I'm one of them.
You get the credit card, you're like, oh, this is infinity money.
Yeah, I'm not paying this back.
So I thought that was an interesting approach, because like I like for my kids to understand like the value of money and like how it impacts your decision making and all that kind of stuff, and then kind of in the background really be the fail safe. But at the end of it, once they earn their degree, like, yo, all right, yo, here's 80%, here's 90% of the
Right. Yeah, I always kind of thought about it as like that middle ground of, yeah, we got the 529, and then, God willing, we are in a good spot by that time, then definitely want to be able to help out, because I don't want it to be, if that's the route he takes, I don't want it to be like a huge burden after the fact. But I'm not opposed to some of that being on him with a loan, to your point, just understanding how that works, and you got some skin in the game, and it's not just a free ride the whole time. You got to learn, you got to invest in yourself, pay for what you want, kind of thing. I definitely don't want him to do it the way I did it, because it's ridiculous. Not only was it ridiculous, but then I also made moves. But first I thought, okay, I'm not going to go to the school that I really want to go to, that I actually got in, because it's expensive. I'm like, man, I don't want to take all that money out. And so I didn't do something because of money, which I could have figured out a way to make it work. So then I did plan B, but then still ended up taking a bunch of damn loans and stuff out, and ended up switching schools and stopped going to school and all. And at the end of the day, it cost a lot of money in loans.
regardless.
Probably would have been the same amount had I done my first choice and stopped, and not listened to that voice in my head of, oh, you can't afford it, don't you know what I mean? So
that's real.
Yeah.
All right, we'll call it a day there. Thank you all for listening. Please,
appreciate it.
Go check out our YouTube page. We crossed 1,000 subscribers recently, so we are proud of ourselves. And that's thanks to all of you guys. So please recommend us, review us if you haven't yet on whatever device you're listening to, And stay tuned because we got some more bangers coming your way. Peace.
All right. Later.